everyone, and welcome to Tips and Tricks with Art by Ashley. I'm Ashley, and today I want to show you how to make easy text effects in After Effects. The first thing we want to do is create a new composition. All of these settings look pretty good, so I don't see a reason to change any of them. We can just go ahead and click OK. Now, we're going to use our horizontal type tool up in the Tools panel. It's this giant T right here. Clicking on it, it changes from white to blue. That's how we know it's selected. And if we go down here and click anywhere in our black artboard, our red cursor will show up. And now we can type out whatever word we choose. I like to pick out the words that I'm going to animate ahead of time. So I picked this quote by Maya Angelou that I shall use. You can use any text that you wish. I have roughly 13 to 14 words here. So to keep up with this demo, I'd recommend something of that length. Now, to get started, we'll type out our first word. For me, is the word you. We'll come down here and click on our text layer so we can see the bounding box has it selected. And going over to the end of the text layer, if we hover over the end, we get a double-sided arrow. This will allow us to click and drag on the text layer to drag it to shrink the layer so it does not span over the entire timeline, because we do not want to see the word throughout the entire sequence. Now that we've done that, we will come back up here and click on our black artboard again and type the next layer, and we will repeat this process of typing out the layer and dragging in the layer frame for the next several words. Now that we almost have all of our words in, once again, all I'm doing is clicking on the artboard so my red cursor pops up, typing the word out, and dragging in the text layer once I see my double-sided arrow at the end of the text line. Okay, yay. Now that we have all of our text placed, the next step is to select our selection arrow up here and change it from white to blue, and then come down to the very bottom layer that we started with. And we're going to go one layer up from that, and we're slowly going to move each layer. I'm not really worried right now about exact placement. We're just going to move each of the layers until we get this staircase look in our timeline. This will help place the words into the timeline to where we see only one word at a time. Okay, yay, now we have all of our text in our timeline, so we will start with our bottom layer by clicking on it and bringing up our bounding box. We click on this arrow beside the red square to open up our layer settings, then scrolling down and clicking on the arrow beside the word transform, we can see the different options. And if you will notice, each one has a circle beside it. This is our stopwatches. By clicking on them, we get keyframes in our timeline, which will help us create our animations. So clicking on the stopwatch beside the opacity setting, we notice it changes from white to blue, and a keyframe gets added to our line. If we zoom in a bit, we can see the layer better for when we place the keyframes. Important note is this blue bar is called an indicator. It's important for this to be at the start of your layer before you begin tinkering with the animation settings. Once you have your first keyframes in, we will scroll this line forward, and we can come over and click on this diamond shape to the far left to create our second keyframe, and then scrolling back to the beginning of the layer, we can start adjusting the numbers and moving forward with our animation. And come over here to the number settings of opacity. There are two ways to do this. You can hover over it to get the double side arrow and scroll down, or you can click on the number and type in the new number that you want. I prefer to use the double side arrows, so that's what I will be using in this tutorial, but you can do it however you would like. I'm just kind of eyeballing the numbers. I normally just go with the basic 0 to 100 and in frames of 10. So moving it down to 0, if we play it back, we get a nice eased in first word. Now, another thing that is just a personal preference of mine is when I'm done, I like to close out my layers. I also like to lock them, so I will be doing that each time I finish a layer and then opening up the layer after. So opening up the next layer settings, we will open it all the way to the transform settings once again, and clicking on our position stopwatch, we can place our first keyframe, then slide the indicator forward a bit. We create our second keyframe. The numbers beside position are X and Y coordinates. Adjusting these allow you to change the word's position on the artboard. Now you may notice a dotted line following the words bounding box. This is to show you where the word starts and ends in the position animation. Therefore, playing it back, we get this sweet word slide in. For our third layer, I want to play with the scale, so having your indicator at the layer start, we will create a keyframe and use the numbers to decrease the size of the word. Then moving the indicator forward, we create a second keyframe and increase the size of the word, repeating the process with a third keyframe to decrease the size again. We can play it back to see this cool pop effect. For this next layer, I want to use the position and opacity settings combined together. We're going to make it look like it's moving up into the artboard because my word is up. So the first thing we need to do is change the position with our first keyframes. So we take the word down and off of the artboard, and then we're going to decrease the opacity to 0. Creating a second keyframe, we're going to move the word up and up and up, and then we're going to increase the opacity to 100 so we can see the word. Playing it back, we have a nice pop-up. For this layer, I wish to use an animator since this is the largest word in our sequence. To use an animator, you click on the animate arrow, and this time we're going to use a fill color and click on RGB to get a bright color. So animate, fill color, RGB is what we're going to do. This brings up a bright red color for our word. Clicking on the bright red square, this brings up the fill color box. I'm going to change my color to blue to add a more calming effect. I think that suits this sequence better than the red, but you can choose any color that you want. I'm just going to play around here to pick the blue that I wish. You can scroll through to get which one and then click OK. Now that we have our color picked out, we're going to come over here and open up the range selector. This gives us the start, end, and offset options. Clicking on the stopwatch for start, we're going to notice that we have 2 new lines, and playing around with the settings of start and end, these lines affect where the color covers the word, and the offset decreases the amount that it covers at a given time. Now that we've played around with these and kind of know what they're like, we can adjust them to how we wish. I'm just picking random numbers. Whatever looks good in the artboard, it's just kind of what I'm going with. I'm not going off specific numbers. But once you get the look that you're after, all you have to do is select your first key, or select the indicator and move it forward to change the keyframe sequence, and then come back and change the scrub numbers on the sides, and this will change the motion of the color over the word. When making my second keyframe, I'm just going to alter the offset, because after defining your start and finish, the offset is really what creates the animation, because it defines where in the word the color will show and won't show. So doing that a couple of times and then playing it back, we get this nice color flow over the word creativity. For our last word in this video, I wish to use a rotation transformation. So we're going to click on the stopwatch and use the numbers to rotate it upside down. Keep the indicator forward and rotate it again until it's facing right side up, implementing our second keyframe. If we play it back, we can see that it creates a nice little swooshing up motion. And that's it for part 1 of Easy Text Effects and After Effects with Art by Ashley. Please come back for part 2 to learn some more cool effects.